Today's a it's really good time right now for movies, just for me personally, because and today I wanted to talk about the Fantastic Four. I wanted to talk about the Fantastic Four movie, and got to go see that about a week ago, which I thought it was really good. I At the end of the day, I'd probably, if you're going to stack up Fantastic Four against Superman 2025, I would probably say I enjoyed Fantastic Four more than Superman, even though I would rate them about the same in terms of quality in movie. And I would give them probably both a 7. But as far as just overall enjoying the movie and the better overall movie, I would give the edge to Fantastic Four. But before we get into the details of the movie, I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a dive into the history of the Fantastic Four movies. And I remember as a kid being really excited for the old superhero movies that existed at the time. And you had some of the old Hugh Jackman X-Men movies, the original X-Men movies. You had Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. And then also you had the Fantastic Four movies, which came out right around the same time or just after some of these Sam Raimi movies. And I think they've been kind of forgotten about. They kind of exist in that same era, but between the X-Men and Spider-Man, they are kind of just shoved over to the side. But those old superhero movies collectively kind of hold a special place in my heart. And I think they hold a special place in the hearts of a lot of people, even though they have their flaws. And the old Fantastic Four movies certainly have their flaws. I think they hold a special place in people's heart because that was before superhero movies were commonly accepted. Now it's just you expect comic book movies to come out and you expect them to be big and you expect them to be huge and you expect them to get a lot of views and a lot of people to watch them. And growing up as a teenager, I had the MCU, which was really nice, and we would always go and watch those movies. But for the older movies, there are genuinely some really good superhero movies. I think Spider-Man 1 and 2 from Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi are actually good movies just beyond the superhero genre. I do think that they're good movies. A lot of them do fall a little bit flat, but there's redeeming qualities to all of them. And as a comic book fan, especially somebody who was a kid during that time period and somebody who grew up watching superhero movies, even though some of those older ones aren't quite as good and don't quite hold up in a lot of ways, you still kind of have to tip your cap to them. It's like, hey, we know that the visual effects weren't as good, or maybe you were limited somewhat by the technology of the time, or maybe they were kind of corny and goofy because you tried to just make it full on comic booky or whatever it was. You still kind of enjoy it and you still tip your cap because at least we appreciate the attempt. As comic book fans, we appreciate the attempt, and that's kind of how I feel about the original two Fantastic Four movies. Now, the first one, I don't really remember a whole lot about it. I mean, they fight Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom actually comes back as the villain in the second one, which actually, as it turns out, I think is the better of the two. Between the Fantastic Four and the Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, I actually think Rise of the Silver Surfer is a little bit better. And I don't really mind the decision to make the Silver Surfer the primary focus. The problem with Rise of the Silver Surfer ultimately was that if there's a Silver Surfer, you have to have Galactus. And if you have Galactus, we need to see the gigantic space human with the crazy helmet, and he's just huge. We need to see all of it. You can't deny us the visual of Galactus, but they did deny us the visual of Galactus. And so what we end up getting is maybe a silhouette and a cloud of smoke, and they really dropped the ball on that one. And so it was kind of a big letdown. But like I said, there's redeeming qualities. The Silver Surfer effect, just the way he looks, is really cool. The I like, is it Michael Chiklis? I think it's Michael Chiklis as the Thing, and Jessica Alba as Sue Storm is good. Chris Evans as the Human Torch is acceptable and kind of funny. It's kind of funny to look back on Chris Evans as the Human Torch, and then the guy they got for Mr. Fantastic. I actually think he plays the role quite well, and so the it's not like the actors were bad and the acting was bad. It was just goofy. They were goofy superhero movies, And for Rise of the Silver Surfer, I just think that they it's not well explained. The ending is not very well explained. I don't really get why, if Galactus gave the Silver Surfer his powers, then how can the Silver Surfer turn around and just disobey him and seemingly destroy him? I don't even remember that part. I don't even remember if the Silver Surfer destroys Galactus or banishes Galactus or does something like that. So it's really weird. If Galactus is the one that bestows the power, the Silver Surfer shouldn't be powerful enough just to turn around and use it back on Galactus. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so those are just old, they're just old goofy comic book movies. I respect the attempt. I respect the what was trying to be done. I respect the actors in it, but it just doesn't quite hold up. And so after that, we were kind of just waiting. We're waiting and waiting. When will we get the proper Fantastic Four movie? And I'm not exactly sure how the contracts and the rights worked out between, I think it was Fox that owned the rights to the Fantastic Four. And from what I understood, it was a situation similar to that of Sony, where Sony owned the rights to Spider-Man and all the Spider-Man characters in his specific universe. They didn't own the rights to everything. So you can't have Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in a larger cinematic universe because they only own the rights to Spider-Man. I think that was a similar situation with Fox, where Fox owned the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, but they didn't own Iron Man and Spider Man. So you can't have a gigantic crossover like you did in something like Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame. And so I also think that Fox was under a lot of pressure after the first two Fantastic Four movies from the mid 2000s didn't work out too well. I think that the contract stipulated that they had to make a movie with these characters. They had to make a movie with these rights to these characters every so often. Otherwise, they would lose the rights to them. And so when you think about it, you have Fantastic Four 2015 comes out 9 or 10 years after the original two Fantastic Four movies. And I think the I think the idea of losing the rights to the characters forced Fox to follow up with a reboot. And so because they were under the pressure of losing the rights to the characters, they released this abomination of a superhero movie. And it just horrible in many different ways. And you can make the argument, it's like, hey Travis, isn't aren't all comic book movies kind of goofy and don't make sense? It's like, yes, but I can say definitively that Fantastic Four 2015 is definitively one of the worst superhero movies ever made. And I do think somewhere in there is buried, even with the same budget, buried in that movie is an actual watchable movie, but the creative decisions that were chosen did not work at all, at all. And the decision to make part of the Fantastic Four, they make them like these black ops operatives where they go around and work for the government. That's not good. They need to be together. That's the whole point. They were the first superhero family, I believe, is how the characters were written. It's like, this is the first superhero family. They need to be together. They need to be a family. They should not be apart for really any reason. The creative decision to put Reed Richards and Ben Grimm in high school does not make a lot of sense. Everything is supposed to be dark and gritty, and I don't really think that's what the Fantastic Four is supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more colorful. It doesn't need to be a Zack Snyder Dark Universe kind of kid. That's not who they are as characters. That they don't work that way. And the movie should have been much better than it was. And they kind of wasted the opportunities that they have with the actors that they had. I mean, they had Miles Teller as Reed Richards, they had Kate Mara as Sue Storm, they had Jamie Bell as the Thing, they had Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm. And so it wasn't like they were short on acting talent. It wasn't like you're like, okay, maybe the script was okay, but they just didn't have the acting talent present to really bring those characters to life. And like, no, all of these are great actors. We've seen them in different movies and they all do really, really well. And so it was the script, it was the creativity behind it, did not service the actors very well. Doctor Doom, they completely destroy Doctor Doom. He basically becomes this alien who has psychic abilities or telekinetic abilities where he's just, you know, blowing people's heads off. I don't even know. I don't even know. But it is one of the worst superhero movies ever made. And so this didn't exactly give people hope that there would be an actual great Fantastic Four movies. And so here we are waiting again. We're waiting. The MCU 2015, the MCU is in full swing. I guess I'm not exactly sure how the rights work with the characters. I don't know if Fox is partially involved or if another studio is partially involved. And it's kind of like they're sharing Spider-Man. So Sony has Spider-Man, but they work in association with Marvel. I don't know if it's one of those deals. I don't know if Marvel owns all of the rights to the Fantastic Four now. I'm not 100% sure about that. But we were always kind of waiting and expecting Kevin Feige to get his hands on the Fantastic Four, especially when all the movies before this one were not good, collectively not good. And so we're kind of just playing this waiting game. We're waiting for a good Fantastic Four movie. And in my opinion, we finally get it. It's been 10 years. We've waited since 2015 for a new Fantastic Four movie. We are waiting for them to join the MCU. We're waiting for them to be part of the cinematic universe. And we finally get a Fantastic Four movie that is worth talking about. And first of all, I want to say that I like the characterizations in this Fantastic Four movie much better than the other ones. I like the idea that Reed Richards, they really lean into the idea that he is an intellectual, right? He's a thinker, he's somebody, his powers are secondary. That's the point. Yes, he has powers, but his greatest power is supposed to be his mind. And so he thinks critically about things. And he really doesn't use his powers a whole lot in the movie. He's a thinker. He tries to think through the problem first. He tries to use his mind first. The powers are kind of just there as a last resort. Like he'll use them if he has to. But first and foremost, he is a thinker. First and foremost, he is a genius. And I think they lean into that a little bit more. They lean into the scientific aspect of Reed Richards in this movie, which I think is really good. I think Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards is not a bad choice either. I Vanessa Kirby is great. Vanessa Kirby, I think, is really good in just about anything she's in. I really like her as an actress. I like the characterization of Ben Grimm. I think they get the voice right. Like when you're talking about the thing and when you're talking about gigantic CGI characters, you have to get the voice right. If the voice does not match the gigantic CGI body and the actor does not match the gigantic CGI body, then it immediately takes you out of the movie. It ruins the character in a sense. But they choose the actor properly, they get the voice right, they actually get the characterization of Ben Grimm correct, and you get the sense he's like the complete opposite of the Hulk. Even though he is this huge monster, he looks like a monster, but he retains all of his humanity. Essentially, he retains emotions. He maintains not just a gigantic rage monster, and you can see that he is this gigantic rock monster, but he's also kind of the emotional pillar for the team. And in a lot of ways, he's the softest person. He's the softest person of the entire Fantastic Four, even though he is physically the strongest. And I think that is comic accurate. I think the portrayal is accurate, and I think the portrayal is really good. Johnny Storm in I forget his name, the new guy. Um, in Fantastic Four 2025. This characterization I think is better, is a more enjoyable character. And I understand that Johnny Storm in the comics is supposed to be the hothead. He's supposed to be maybe irresponsible and all these different things. And you kind of get that he's definitely the one that he's more about action and he's more about fighting than he is about thinking. But they find the right balance. You can see that, yes, he's a younger guy and he's kind of a hothead, but also he's actually really smart and he actually knows how to use his brain. And at the end of the day, he was willing to, spoilers all around, he was actually willing to almost sacrifice himself in the end. So, yes, it's not like he's irresponsible. He is responsible, but he's also kind of, um, he likes to live life in the fast lane, kind of. So the balance of the Human Torch is correct. And so they get the main characters mostly right. I will also say, for an aesthetic, I love retrofuturism. I you get the feeling when you watch this movie that it's taking place in the 1960s, but everything is a little bit more advanced. I mean, they have a flying car in the movie, and they have intergalactic travel, and they have you can travel the universe at large with the technology that Reed Richards has come up with. And I really like that aesthetic. Everything kind of looks new. It's vibrant and colorful, but it's also like new and somehow looks retro at the same time. It's kind of like Star Wars. You see the scroll at the beginning of the movie, and it says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's like, okay, this was a long time ago, but the technology is clearly more advanced than anything we have right now on Earth in the modern day. And so I really enjoy that dynamic. And I am fine with the fact that in this universe, they're from a different, in the MCU, they're from a different universe. Now, I am not a huge fan of the multiverse in general, whether it's in the comics or whether it's in the movies or TV shows or whatever it is. I don't think the multiverse really works when it comes to good storytelling because when you just casually throw out the idea that there is an infinite amount of versions of this particular character and this particular story, it kind of makes it hard to believe that there are any real stakes. It's like, okay, well, who cares? Who cares if this character dies, or who cares if this character gets injured, or who cares if this character goes away? Because we can just bring in another character from the multiverse that is like 99.9% exactly like them. And so I think that's kind of dumb. I think that it does make for a an expanded amount of ideas. It makes room for different ideas, but ultimately, I think it kind of hinders everything. And so I'm not a huge fan of the multiverse. Now, there are characters within the comics that they have to exist specifically in the multiverse. For example, Miles Morales, which I think Miles Morales is actually part of the mainstream ultimate universe with Ultimate Spider-Man, but he is has become kind of a character with the Spider-Verse movies where he's the character that bounces around from universe to universe and talks to all these different versions of Spider-Man. And so he can exist in that universe, and I'm fine with that. And I'm also fine with Barry Allen as the Flash. He can travel back in time and meet different versions of himself. It works for those specific characters, but generally when you're trying to build a universe, I don't think that works. So I have not been a huge fan of the multiverse saga at all, but I do accept the fact that they were from a different universe because it's one of the easiest ways to answer all the questions of where have the Fantastic Four been this whole time? Why haven't they been helping? Did they get snapped away? It just kind of answers, nope, they're from different universe. They don't even exist on in the movie universe that we've been watching. Okay, fine. I can accept that. That's fine. And it does also make sense that Reed Richards, if anybody can crack multiversal travel, it's Reed Richards. It's not like Tony Stark sitting it's not like Tony Stark sitting in his living room on a random Tuesday night in Avengers Endgame and like, "Oh shoot, I figured out how to I solved time travel in like 5 minutes." It's not like that. Reed Richards actually has the capacity to do things like that. And so if anybody can make it to a different universe, it's Reed Richards. So I will make an exception and accept the fact that they are coming to this universe because they're from a different universe. They don't even exist in the current MCU yet. So I am excited to see them in movies moving forward. I think they're going to be in Secret Wars and whatever Avengers movie comes after that, Avengers Doomsday. And so you can't have Doctor Doom as the big bad guy and then not have the Fantastic Four. Robert Downey, I guess okay, first with Fantastic Four 2025. Let me finish with this movie, and then I'll talk a little bit about Robert Downey Jr. Might as well talk about him being Doctor Doom. I I like the villains, and you kind of since they have never gotten Galactus completely right, you kind of have to go back. Hey, this is the Fantastic Four. They're now in the MCU. Let's get the Galactus storyline correct. And I don't really have a problem with them changing the Silver Surfer to the female version. I think that there is actually a female version of the Silver Surfer in the comics. So it's like, okay, I like the Norrin Rad version a lot, but they basically play the same role. And they do actually get Galactus right. And it is the same. It is the same as what I was talking about with Ben Grimm. When you have this massive CGI character, you have to get the voice right. And Ralph Ineson's voice does carry the character a lot. And actually, they kind of use his face as well. I mean, he's Galactus is wearing the helmet the entire movie, but they actually use, you can tell that it's his face. So they do kind of like the motion capture thing, the facial capture thing, and it's his face, it's his voice, and it really helps the character a lot. Kind of this ominous, looming, gigantic presence of a character, and they kind of leave it up in the air as to what actually happened to Galactus. They transported him to the far edges of the galaxy, from what Reed Richards says. So I don't know if he'll actually be coming back. I will say one thing. I will say one thing. I don't know if you don't really get to see a lot of Galactus's powers, and he's supposed to hold the power cosmic and be this almost unbeatable entity. And Invisible Woman slash Sue Storm overpowers him by herself. Okay, I'm willing to accept it to a certain extent. I mean, it's part of the movie. How do you deal with a cosmic level threat in 2 hours in a 2 hour movie? She just basically overpowers him by herself with the love of a mother, essentially. Fine, fine. I guess I'll accept it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me at the end of the day. Maybe she is that powerful. I haven't read a lot of Fantastic Four comics. Maybe she is. Maybe she just holds back all the time, and she is that powerful. But fine, whatever. Doctor Doom coming back, or Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom. I remember seeing this reveal at Comic-Con. I think it was last year or maybe the year before. But I think I hope this is not true, but it probably is true that Marvel kind of made this decision out of desperation. It's like we can't live without the nostalgia of the original core characters. So you have Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Jeremy Renner. That's the core. And other great pieces and characters were added along the way, but those are the ones who really built the MCU as we know it. And I think that Marvel was getting kind of desperate, and so it's like, we need a Hail Mary pass here. Let's bring Robert Downey Jr. back, but we're not going to make it. It's not going to be like a cheap thing. He's actually the villain now. He's actually the villain. That's going to be interesting. It's like, okay, we'll see if it works. If it works, it works. If the movies end up being good, if his portrayal as Doctor Doom ends up being really good and the best one that we've had so far, then sure, then it worked out for them. But on the surface level, it does seem kind of cheap. They're just reaching for as much as they can. It's like, we're desperate now, so we're going to bring back Robert Downey Jr. And I've heard that they're just going to reset the entire MCU after that, which fine, whatever. But I'm not sure. I'm excited to see it, and I definitely think that Robert Downey Jr. will try to bring some different levels to the character. But just on the surface of it, it does seem kind of a move, kind of done out of desperation to bring Robert Downey Jr. back, and so we'll see what happens. But overall, again, I'd give Fantastic Four 2025 a 7 out of 10, and it is the best Fantastic Four movie that is ever made. It is the aesthetic is great. The villains are good. The characterizations of the heroes are good, and I would say the most enjoyable. They lean into the idea of family a lot, and that's who they are supposed to be. And so I will accept this as the best Fantastic Four movie that we have ever gotten. Now, still keeping the subject on Pedro Pascal, but moving to something away from the movie. There has been some controversy with the habits that have been displayed by Pedro Pascal, like on the red carpet and in interviews. So the story basically goes like this: Pedro Pascal has a problem with anxiety, and because of this, he will seek out the physical touch of co-stars in order to help him cope with anxiety. So if he's filming, or if he's on the red carpet, or if he's in an interview and he starts to become uncomfortable because of his anxiety, he'll hold a co-star's hand. And people are calling him out on this because it seems to mostly be a good-looking women, right? And so people are asking the question: is he using anxiety as an excuse to inappropriately touch his female co-stars? And I will just say, from my perspective, and different videos that I've seen, him and Vanessa Kirby seem to kind of be somewhat all over each other. Like it seems to go both ways. It's like he touches her and she touches him. And so maybe that's just the dynamic of their relationship. And I haven't done a lot of research into this. I don't know if there's other problems with other co-stars, but and so I don't really know what's going on. But here's what stuck out to me when I started to see a bunch of people talk about this. Should he be doing this, or is he just using this as an excuse? Here's the thought that runs through my mind. It's like, sure, you can ask the question whether or not he is justified in touching his co-stars, but what I will say, and here's a problem. I ask myself the question, where are the men of the women he is touching? Where are the husbands? That's what I'm wondering. That's the question that I am asking. And Vanessa Kirby, she is pregnant currently in real life, and so she has a partner or a husband. She I'm assuming, I don't know about her private life. I'm assuming she actively has a man in her life, whether it's a partner or husband or whatever. And I'm just saying that for me, whether or not Pedro Pascal is justified, if I was that man, I would kind of be like, come on, dude, let's rein it in a little bit here. I understand that you have issues and we can acknowledge those problems. And if those problems are real, then I hope you get help with dealing with those things. But you need to stop touching my wife. You need to stop touching my partner. Okay. And this isn't the only example of this. Jurassic World Rebirth also came out over the last month or so, and there are pictures of Scarlett Johansson kissing one of her male co-stars on the red carpet as well. And she is married to the host of SNL. And so, and again, that's another example. Where is he at? What what is he doing? What does he have to say about all of this? Where are the men? Where are the husbands? Where are it's not good. And this is I understand that this is a somewhat of a tricky situation because it's Hollywood, right? Everybody's an actor, everybody is used to playing characters that they're not, and people do things on screen that they otherwise wouldn't do, okay? And that's a different what is acceptable to do on screen if you're married or not married, or just generally what is moral from a moral perspective or a Christian perspective. That's, we can have a different conversation about that a different day. But I'm just saying that if I'm just saying if my wife or my woman outside, even inside a movie, but especially in these cases where it's happening like on the red carpet and in interviews, they're not acting, they're not in the movie, they're not doing it for the sake of the movie. In those public but less professional atmospheres, I feel like I would have to say, "Hey, let's dial it back here. Let's keep our hands to ourselves. You don't get to just touch my wife or touch my partner whenever you want to." Okay? And I think that was literally I'm watching the videos and I'm watching the controversy, and one of the first thoughts is in my head is, where's the men? Where's the men? And so I think it's good, and people are going to say, well, she's a strong independent woman, and she's a successful actress, and she gets to do whatever she wants. I'm just saying that for the sake of respect for yourself, like I want people to respect my wife and be respectful to her, but also for some self-respect, and speak up and say, you're not going to touch my wife anymore. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that that's a wrong thing. And so I think that some of these guys in Hollywood, they shouldn't just let any man kiss their wife, touch their wife, especially when they're not acting. It's not a good, I don't think it's a good look. And then it's also about demanding respect for your wife and her body, and demanding respect for yourself as well.